So the first item on the agenda is the minutes of the
February 23rd.
meeting of February 23rd of the Audit Committee, which have been circulated to the committee members for their review. Are there any comments on the minutes? Could I have a motion for their approval?
Second.
Is any objection to approval of the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are adopted. I understand that there is no change to the work plan. At this point, there's no audit committee scheduled for May. The next meeting is scheduled for June 22nd. Is this the June 22nd?
Yes.
The June 22nd meeting will address the management letters, first quarter 09 consolidated interim financial statements, the investment compliance report, the review of the Inspector General's office, and update on the MTA Business Service Center. The next item on the agenda is a monthly update now on the Business Service Center, and I would ask Len DeSimone to
Len?
give us that.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I'm happy to say that the BSC is fully up and running. We started our implementation phase, where we have our vendors in place. We have half of our staff in place already, and we continue to hire. We've started what we call our fit gap analysis, where we're taking people from the agencies, coming in to gather facts from them to develop how the system will be designed. We have 175 SMEs, subject matter experts from all the agencies. It's an amazing team effort. You have to see this to really believe how it's happening. Everyone has come in. They've asked great questions. They're fully working. Mike's staff is in with us doing some work, and we started our implementation phase, and it's going very well on schedule. So we're all working together towards that, and we expect to have our fit gap done in about 4 months, which means we start our programming, and that's happening. Just wanted to give you some more updates. We started looking at new functions. I met with the board recently, a couple of months ago. We've looked at accounts receivable, capital accounting and payments, and internal controls. We have that study completed. We are about to present it to our senior management team. If they agree with our recommendations, we will then implement that into the core functionality with additional savings, but I still have to get that through the presidents and Lee. I'll get back to you as soon as we're done with that. We've also started our procurement study. It started about a week ago, and we have 8 weeks to the study. We're looking at the end of May to June to come up with the best way to implement the results of that study. But that's a good story. We have all of the procurement directors. I meet with them monthly. Now we're meeting with them twice a month to come up with the best way to do this as a team. Everyone is involved. Everyone is really supporting this effort, and some good results will come out of it. As well as doing the study for implementation of BSC, we've started the BSC review panel. What that panel is, it's a team of people, 2 of Mike's, 4 of my people, that get procurements greater than $250,000 of every procurement that comes through for $250,000 or greater to see if there is a possible way of doing it in a joint procurement to save additional money. That's already started. I've gotten a bunch of them already my team is looking at, and we will go to the other agencies to see if it is reason to do joint. If not, we will inform the board why it's not. I did that last month with 3 of the procurements myself. I met with Andrew Saul. He was very happy with the results of it. We did 3 together. We saved some money on that. That's already started, and everyone is participating. Everyone's doing what they have to do. It's really a good thing to see.
Lenny, is that adding a lot of time to an already typically lengthy procurement process?
No, we designed this together. I put together a drawing of how it would work. I met with all the procurement directors 2 months ago. We all put it in pieces of the puzzle to ensure that we don't add any timing to the procurement, nor do we hurt a procurement of an individual company because we have to get it done. Let me give you an example. Last month, New York City Transit needed to start a procurement for heavy building supplies. Their contract was expiring. So I met with them right away and said, okay, we don't want to stall you, but we have to do this jointly. We all agreed we will allow Stanley Grill to put in last month they put in a 1-year extension of the current contract, and we are now working for the next 2 or 3 months to come up with a joint procurement that all the agencies have all participated in, given the facts, and then at that time we will go out to procure as an all-agency procurement. But Stanley needed to get his procurement extended. We did that. Andrew was very delighted, and within, I'd say, about another 4 months, we will come to the board with a joint procurement for all the agencies. And that's a typical thing that we're doing now together, and that's coming through the BSC to ensure that stuff happens, and it's working well. The people are really all the companies are working together, and Mike's involved, and we're all doing very well together.
And in terms of measuring the efficacy of this program and dollars saved, will there be some quarterly or semi-annual update on? We could benchmark our progress.
Yeah,
on
we were
this.
looking at semi-annual to start if the board felt they wanted to see quarterly. But I will definitely brag to the board and tell them how much we saved with this process. But I will then issue a report. If you like it quarterly, we do it quarterly. But I was thinking maybe semi-annually. Yeah, we briefly talked about this type of reporting. Now it will be a lot easier once we have PeopleSoft up and running as one company, one system at 211. But we are also building for the same purpose of this in order to do statistical reporting like this. We have started, next week we're meeting with the CIOs of all the agencies to build a data warehouse now of historical data, of historical procurement data. Mike now has a team that goes out, and if we need, right now he's doing information for me for the next joint procurement, which is safety equipment. He has to go to 6 agencies and go through 6 systems to get this information. It takes time. So what we're doing is in the next 3 to 4 months, we're developing one database, working with the CIOs and the procurement directors of gathering the data from their historical data banks, bringing it into one, making it compatible. And this way, Mike or my staff can go in there and get historical information so we make good decisions on procurement way before PeopleSoft goes up. That came out of the study one of the first weeks, and we said, we're not waiting, we're going to do that. That'll become our PeopleSoft data warehouse for historical data for procurements. So we're not doing it and throwing it away. It actually is good now. We're going to clean some data and get it to a standardized point. We're also, in that same vein, is creating, as an all-agency team, a chart of commodities, similar to what we did with our chart of accounts. We developed our own chart of accounts. We have parts of it in PeopleSoft now, and we're continuing to cleanse it. That's an all-agency effort. By doing that together, before we brought in consultants, we saved $1.2 million doing it internally. I actually pulled that right out of Accenture's contract because our team, MTA team, did it, and they did a great job. So we're doing the same thing now with procurement people from the agencies developing a chart of commodities. So we'll have one standard pen instead of someone calling it a big pen, a black pen. When you do that, it's very difficult to track how many pens you buy during the year. I'm using pens, but for bigger commodities, for bigger things, we'd like to know how much we spent on gear casings in the boat railroads. It's very difficult to see that now because we may call it different things. Well, we're trying to standardize that. So this is the beginning of that, and that will work right through PeopleSoft. So it's not wasted time. It's not something that gets thrown away. Plus, we have the information here. Information makes us much better at what we do. And we did this for the HR world. The HR directors loved it now, and we query things for them all the time. We can also possibly use this to do our yearly reporting on procurements. Right now, we did our last yearly procurement for the state. It took us months to do because we had 6 different systems, 7 different formats. Now, if we put this all together, the BSC will run that report the agencies can review. Plus, if the board has questions, I'll be able to give you quicker answers because we have one database. That's happening. That's already started, and we're working towards that. We did it with the HR world. That's already done, and we've used it for different functions already. And we're doing it now for the bus companies. Joe Smith has asked the BSC to work with his team, Tom Del Sorbo and a bunch of the other people at the bus companies. We are putting together a database functionality for their people to look at 3 different warehouses because there's 3 different companies. So without going crazy and looking at 3 or 4 different systems to know how many bus parts or how many windshields we have, We're going to give them one-stop shopping, which is real-time. We're actually building this, pumping the information from 3 systems until we have a PeopleSoft world. And that's going real well. We met twice already, and we're projecting, I'm not sure, I think it's like 4 months that'll be live. Joe Smith is ecstatic. He'll have that way before PeopleSoft, and he now and his staff could look at all 3 locations, all the different warehousing, and all 3 systems to see how many starters he has for the B1 buses. And we've already started that, and together we're doing that jointly. So the BSC is doing a lot of functional work now, and besides building the future, building the company and the systems. We are called out by a lot of different companies, all the different agencies, to do work for them. We've done work throughout the year for all the agencies, and we work very well together. And it's good. We bond that way. We become very good partners.
Just to confirm, everything that we're doing is going to be movable into PeopleSoft without any
Everything is
glitches or-
Oracle-based. Everything will not be wasted. We're leveraging more systems than I anticipated. We leveraged Metro North's financial systems, which I put up, and now that the bus company is already on. We did that less than 4 years ago. We spent a big part of money, but it's a great system. Accenture at the time did the study, said you rip it down and you build from scratch. I said no. So we leveraged that. We went from a $145 million estimate down to a $127 million bid that they put in. Through negotiations and all of the leveraging and the work we did up front, we settled through good negotiations with Cliff and his staff to a $103 million contract. We have $13 million that we have as a contingency pot that I can use as needed for like possibly rebuilding the pension system because we're bringing Satoa and Mapstoa into the picture. I may not have to use that, but if I do, it's there. But our contract's 103, down from an estimate of 145. I just did something for Jim Sedora, based on everything we've done in 1 year's time. Estimated savings, like we just talked about, savings because we're taking lateral moves and taking functionality over. For instance, Attila Lee from headquarters was brought into the BSC as the director of benefits. We took his whole function in, and headquarters is not backfilling that function, nor did I increase my staff. So and I gave a sheet to the board recently. I met with the working committee based on the lateral moves we've made in the last year and taking the functions. We took Metro North's PeopleSoft function, not only the systems, all the responsibilities with that, and we took their staff, merged it into my headcount, not increasing headcount, but reducing headcount at Metro North. That and other things we've done at headquarters, 8 more people, that came to $3.6 million in savings. And the board was delighted when I met with them last week. And as we're doing that, we're talking more and more to agencies about it. Well, if we hire you and you're coming into the BSC, should we take that function now because it's going to be there anyway? And that's what we're working out with the agency presidents, and we're starting to look at more and more of that.
So new hires, has that been
I'm working with
stopped or?
No, not yet. I'm working with Lee and Myrna from headquarters and Gary to try not to get that stopped because I need to get my 100 in place. And right now, we hasn't been decided. We're going to work on that.
Okay. So we need to save money here, too.
Oh, I understand. But you need to get that in place because I have a contractual obligation with Accenture. Part of the deal, the reason I got it so cheap is, well, so inexpensive is because we have a 1-to-1 ratio with them because our people are doing half the work. And that's why it came in. I also showed the board an interesting slide, and I can present it to you guys next month if you like, of other companies of our size or even bigger or smaller that have gone forward with the same type of work, sometimes even less. They just put an ERP in for all their agencies. We are coming in the lowest and at the quickest time. It's taking us approximately 1 year and 8 months or 9 months. Other agencies took 5 years and spent 3 times what we're spending. And I got real numbers at the internet, and our vendors came in with numbers of other companies they did. So when we are successful in 2011 and we go in within budget or lower, we will be as big as a lot of these other companies have done it, but for much less and a much quicker time. We're looking at every way. Talking about savings, I wanted to give you an example. Just the other day, we were talking about, I was in my office and we were doing some whiteboarding, and one of the people came in with my pay stub of direct deposit. And I hate those pay stubs because I don't throw them away. I'm one of these fanatics that keep them. And then you got to shred them because it's got all your information on it. My wife's always yelling at me. She gave me my pay stub, and I'm like, I hate this. And then I said, you know what? What if we didn't have to print these out? And I said, what if we were electronically post them on our website, the BSC's Oracle portal for employees when we go live at 2/11, where as an employee of all the agencies, you can go out and see your pay stub way before you get paid, so you can use that. It's a good benefit for you. You can see your cash flow. But then I shouldn't have to print them. What would be the cost on that? For the printing, for the delivery? We still have to look at if there's any union obligation. I don't know of any. But we did some research, and this is all preliminary, so please don't hold it to me yet. But we looked at that, and you can't believe how many thousands of these we produce and actually ship out to the sites where the employees work. I know at Metro North, we print them. I used to run that. We print them. We put them on work trains. People get involved. You have to have them put in envelopes. If we didn't print those and electronically gave you the option to look at that on a website, from your home, from a library, from a kiosk we put out in the field, we could potentially save close to $2.6 million. That's what it costs us a year to do this. So we went and did the homework, and now we're going to try to incorporate that. Make sure that there's no union issues. You know, you have to cover that. So please don't hold me to this. But that's $2.6 million that we did not include in our 30-something million dollars that I'm going to bring in 2012. Well, if that's the case, I could bring that in. That's another $2.6 million.
How do you deal with the privacy aspect of that kind of information access?
It's all under certain strict regulations within the guidelines, the federal, state guidelines. You have certain software that protects that. You have to have your password to log on and see that. Only you could see that. Someone steals your password, or you give it away, someone can go in. Okay, we can also monitor every time you go there, so we can document for the auditors that someone got their pay stub or saw that their pay stub was visually looked at. Other companies are doing this all over the country. We've checked on that, too.
That's the way I was paid.
Headquarters has that now, by the way. Headquarters, you can actually go see your pay stub way in advance. But they're still printing out the pay stubs.
Well, I guess the other question is, do we require employees to accept electronic deposit of salary, or is it an option?
It's an option, but the
It's an
option
option.
has become much more popular. And we should market that, too. It's much,
I
years
think
ago.
the problem here is that, you might have the potential savings, but I think if you are still obliged to provide actual checks in payroll, even though a majority of your employees may take electronic transfer, the fact that you have to maintain the structure to also deliver checks means that the savings available to you, I think, are considerably less. And I think the same applies on the pay stub issue. If you could actually wipe out the function and replace it with electronic access,
We'll
I
go for
guess
that.
I would find your cost savings more reliable as a prospect.
This is a preliminary number. I just wanted to give you an idea, but we looked at that not reducing the paycheck cutting. It's much smaller in number. And the way we do it with PeopleSoft, you have two different functions going on separately. Once you do your pay drafts, which are your vouchers for direct deposit, then you run and do your pay. So you won't have to use the same system. You only use it to run the small amount of paychecks. So these are just strictly savings from paper reduction, ink, and delivery cost. It's not taken out. Do you still need 3 people to run that function? That's something we didn't even look at yet. So you may have 3 people that print out thousands of pay stubs and paychecks. That we haven't gone down far enough. But just by eliminating the paper alone and the process of printing those extra ones with ink and delivery is tremendous. So you're right. We have to look at it and round it out. But I just wanted to give you ideas we're looking at. Another one is we are now show the CFOs one accounts receivable system, which Metro North, that the BSC built for Metro North, which we just put into headquarters, which is working very well. Having one type of AR system, what we're envisioning is having a system that will self-eliminate when we get to the top in accounting, which means our intercompany balances will do a lot of the entries themselves. Also, right now, if you have a bill between agencies, most of the agencies will cut a piece of paper, send that bill to the other agency, and then that agency will cut a check or do a direct deposit, electronic transfer. Well, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's over $30 to cut a check, an accounts payable check, about $15 to cut accounts receivable bill, and then when I get the check and I got to deposit it, could be another $15 just to deposit and process that in the bank. We're talking about $60, $70 a transaction. If I could do it electronically and give people what we call electronic workflow, where they can electronically approve these, the systems can debit and credit themselves out, and when you get to the intercompany elimination, it's basically almost done. Our chart of accounts is built to do that, to do better reporting at the top level. So these are just two things we just started to look at, and I believe there's savings there. And I've shown the CFOs this system. We started talking to them. We don't see anything yet that's telling us we can't. It's all part of our study with the AR. So we're trying to come up with savings that are just there, that are coming up as we do our initial review. And we have more. I'll report more to you. And we'll add to that. I'm hoping to add to that $30 million number. My goal is to get the return on your investment down to under 2 years. I have it down to less than 4 years now. So procurement, we're doing very well. We're up and running. I talked to you about the database, the chart of commodities. We're also looking at one timekeeping system. Even though it's out of scope, timekeeping at this point of the BSC's implementation, we are looking at one timekeeping system for all the agencies. Most of the agencies have Kronos. Headquarters is very interested now. I met with them and gave them a demo. We've met with their police department, and we are going to look again to see how we can make that more efficient within the agency and the police. Metro North, the BSC is installing Kronos with their staff now as we speak. So we're getting to a point where all of the agencies will have one timekeeping system. New York City Transit has a couple, but we're talking to them about maybe using Kronos more than they have. I've also met, and procurement from the MTA is working with me. We're going to meet with Kronos, who is dying to give me an all-agency one contract for all the agencies, like we did with Oracle. They just sent me something. Cliff and I are working on it. They're willing to give me all kinds of discounts, and I'm going to work towards getting a better pricing and maybe some refunds or maybe some good stuff for no cost at all to get towards that one. And the timekeeping system is good. Everyone seems to like it, and it works very well. So we're looking at that type of stuff.
What is the annual? There must be an annual licensing cost or something with Kronos?
There are licensing for users, not annual. You buy a number of licensing. We have one contract.
There's not an ongoing payment for the use of the system?
There is maintenance fees that you pay every year to maintain, like all systems, there are maintenance fees that you pay the vendors to, in case there are issues and you can't solve them, you have to maintain that. We do have a good contract now in place with them. I worked with B&T on that when they went out, and we got a good price from Metro North. But I want one contract where we have one enterprise licensing agreement, because we want to use their module for FMLA. They have an excellent FMLA module, and we want to standardize that as well. So right now, yeah, we do have licensing, but I want to merge that and get some discounts and maybe get some refunds back on that. So that's what we're looking at.
I guess the only thing I think is that might be worth keeping in mind is that, I mean, in the marvels of consolidation and the universal system, you also put yourself totally at the mercy of the particular vendor from whom you bought the system on which you are now relying for life and breath. And I think that that's a dynamic to keep in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
As you go through here.
What we do is, and we did this at the staff I have now with PeopleSoft, is we have a trained staff of about 30 people. So even though we keep our contract, we can do things in PeopleSoft without Oracle there. And we've gotten very efficient, and we do the same thing with Kronos. But
except that you can't, I mean, I don't know what your relationship is, but I imagine that you do not, in fact, own the software that you're using. Aren't you dependent on a continuing license
Absolutely.
From them?
You technically should not alter that software. You can alter it using the certain tools that are with the software, but you should not go in and change it, because then your warranty and your maintenance contract will not be honored. But you work with that. That's the same with any system you buy, unless you write the system yourself. And that's something you don't want to do, a size of a financial system for 6,000.
I'm only concerned that you put yourself at the mercy of the vendor when you're dependent on an ongoing use of the system and negotiating the license cost as you go.
Okay. We'll keep that in mind. But you do get major discounts doing it this way.
We just paid amazing licensing fees to IBM, and I know we use their computers everywhere, but it was a staggering amount of money.
I mean, it's the guaranteed funds flow of the system vendor, and it's a flow of funds from you, the client, to them.
You're at their mercy if you buy their system.
Yes.
I mean, it's just the way it is, unless you write your own, and that could be very expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that there's a miracle cure here that I have any knowledge of. I just think that it's something to keep in mind as you go.
Yes, we will. Okay, that's the update, and we're doing well. Everything is still on target. And does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that the next item on the agenda is the 2008 financial statements. And we have the MTA group and the New York City Transit group. I'd ask the MTA group to come up. I guess it's Deloitte and Touche. And I gather that we have present MTA headquarters, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, Bridges and Tunnels, MTA Bus, and FMTAC staff.
Would you like those controllers to come up?
Whatever the normal pattern is. If we have, that's fine.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Going to have to apologize with me. I'm a little under the weather, but I'll make it through. What I'd like to do now, if it's all right with you, is go through our required communications to you, the audit committee members, and rather than repeat it 6 times, I'm going to do it all in one fell swoop, and then afterwards I would be happy to answer any questions as it relates to the audits of the financial statements.
Thank you.
We have performed an audit of the consolidated financial statements of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Metro North Commuter Railroad, Long Island Railroad, Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, MTA Bus, and the First Mutual Transportation Assurance Company, as of and for the year ended December 31st, 2008, in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. Our responsibility under those auditing standards have been previously conveyed to you in our engagement letter dated November 10th, 2008. As part of our audit, we consider these entities' internal controls as a basis for designing the audit procedures. However, we do not express an opinion on such internal controls as part of our audit. Accounting estimates are an integral part in each and every one of these financial statements, and they're based upon management's current judgments. The significant accounting estimates reflected in some of these financial statements relate to allowances for doubtful accounts, materials and obsolescent reserves, inventory reserves for obsolescence, depreciable lives, environmental accruals and contingencies, other post-employment benefits, estimated liabilities to injured persons, as well as market value of investments. As it relates to uncorrected misstatements, there were no uncorrected misstatements as it relates to the aforementioned entities for the year ended December 31st, 2008. There were no material misstatements that were brought to management during our audit of these particular entities for the year ended December 31st, 2008. As noted in our opinions for each of the entities, the organization as a whole implemented GASB Statement Number 49, and that was previously disclosed to you, the committee members, during our quarterly reviews. We did not have any disagreements with management or their staff during our audit and received the full cooperation. Throughout the year, we do have routine discussions with management and their staff concerning accounting pronouncements. In our judgment, such discussions or correspondence were not held in the retention of us as their independent external auditors. In addition, we have attached to this particular letter and the respective other required communication letters the draft of the management representation letter, which will be signed upon your approval of the financial statements for each of the respected entities. And at this point, I'd like to answer any questions you may have regarding our audit for the aforementioned entities.
I gather we have some questions from
Yes, from Jim.
Chairman?
He asked me to ask. This is from Jim Sedor, Chair. Glenn, if you could talk about the impact on GASB 45 and 49 had on the MTA consolidated financial statements on both the balance sheet and income statement for 08.
Sure. Okay. It's discussed within the MD&A, and on the, let me just point you to a page. GASB 45, the increase was $1,348,000.
What page on, Glenn?
Page 11, it's disclosed. And then if you were to go to the balance sheet, which is on page 25, you're going to see the current as well as the long-term portion on there. There's a current portion, or I should say the long-term portion is $2,638,000 as compared to $1,290,000 in the prior year, and that's actuarially determined, and we review that as well as tested at all the various agencies, so that was disclosed. And that, in essence, was accruing during the quarters, so that buildup of that net OPEB liability throughout the quarters was increasing, and on a go-forward basis, it will increase as well, because the agencies as well as the MTA, they are paying the pay-go piece of it, so the liability will consistently increase, and ultimately it will end up at, I believe the estimate was last year around $13.6 billion.
No, it's $13.2 billion.
I apologize. I just.
No, it basically gets reaffirmed every year. But you're right, $13.2 billion.
And then as it relates to GASB 49, again, in the MD&A, we talk about it on page 15, but more specifically, in the footnotes, note 11, there's a disclosure concerning the actual statement itself and the implementation with the expense and liability. And then on the financial statements, again, if we refer back to the balance sheet and the P&L, on page 25, there's a current portion and there's a long-term portion. The current portion is $19 million. The long-term portion is $86 million. Combined, that's $105 million of liability. The expense side of that, if you bear with, is $43 million because, again, in prior years, certain entities did record pollution remediation liabilities that were just reclassed when the statement became effective for this year.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? The other question is for New City Transit.
MTA Group, right? That's what we're in. Yeah. Are there any other questions, members, on the MTA Group? Could I have a motion to accept the 2008 MTA Consolidated Financial Statement and the draft 2008 financial statements for the other agencies included in the MTA Group? Second. Any objection to the approval of the motion? The motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
PwC.
I'm sorry, Pricewaterhouse. And the next portion of this topic is the New York City Transit Group, Pricewaterhouse.
Good afternoon to the committee. We have a presentation, and much in the same vein as Zoe's presentation, we're not going to go through all of the points under the supposition that the information was read, but I'd like to just highlight a few areas of our key focus this year during the 2008 audits of the New York City Transit Group. You'll see in your book, it's on page 17, we have our report, and we list out our scope of services. As the committee is aware, we are reporting on the New York City Transit Authority, Long Island Bus, Sertoa. We also have a report that we do on the retail operations of Grand Central Terminal. We also list out here as far as FTA agreed-upon procedures reports we perform, which will be issued by April 30th, as well as on the next page, which we'll talk about in subsequent meetings, the A133 itself. I will tell you with respect to the New York City Transit Group, the reports that we plan to issue after today's meeting will be unqualified. There are no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that are defined by the literature that we have. We did receive excellent cooperation from all the management groups. Some key areas of focus, though, certainly were on cash flows. As you can imagine, for this year, we spent quite a bit of time looking at the budget, the revised budgets, talking to the investment side on the MTA, and really understanding those cash flows. There's a subsequent event disclosure in the financials with respect to the board meeting on the 25th of March and the proposed increase, so that has been documented, that, as well as we've had internal discussions as well. We also spend a considerable amount of time from an IT perspective looking at the systems, and with particular the New York City Transit Authority. As you can imagine, a very large system, very volume-intensive business. One of our key areas is to look at the systems in depth, access controls, password controls, reliability of data. So we spend about 50% of our audit with our IT colleagues on our team that look through the systems. And I am happy to report as well that there are no issues, material issues, which have come out of that review. I am going to ask you to turn, if you could, to the next page, to page 19. We just want to focus. I'm going to ask T-Bolt, who's my manager, and Annie, who is our senior on the account, just to spend a few minutes and talk about other significant areas of focus, so we spend some time.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So we performed our audit procedures, which included the reviews of significant accounting policies, so revenue recognition policies, as Mike mentioned it. We also reviewed the actuarial assumptions for the pensions, employee benefits, other than pensions, employee benefits, and we had our pension specialists involved in this review, and they did not raise any significant issues. We also reviewed the estimated useful life of fixed assets and the implementation of GASB 49 in 2008. And as Mike said, based on the audit procedures we performed, we haven't found any material issues or differences that could have a material impact, significant effect on the financial statements as of December 2008. And we also didn't have any disagreement with management during our field work.
So I'll just wrap up our required communications on page 19. We were independent with respect to any relationships between our firm and the New York Transit Group. And during our review of the financial statements, we ensured transparent reporting as far as clear and concise language, consistency, and compliance with GAAP.
And the last item I would just mention, as part of the audit, which has been part of the audit process for the last 3 or 4 years now, I guess, is a SAS 99, our consideration of fraud in the financial statement audit. As part of our testing, we look at certain things like access controls, reconciliations, as you would imagine. We also spend time talking to key members of management and look through internal audit reports to see if there's any material fraud that we should be aware of. But I would ask the committee, as I do every year at this time, if you're aware of any fraud that I should be aware of before I sign these accounts. And I will caveat that certainly by saying in the realm of materiality to the financial statements. So noted. Certainly any questions?
Do we have a question? Mike or Kevin McKenna is here, the controller of New York City Transit as well, and I think this question pertains to him. But Kevin or Mike, could you comment on the increase in pension costs in 2008 of 15%?
Sure.
Basically, we have 2 pension plans within the New York City Transit. About 42,000 of our employees belong to NYSERS, which is a multi-agency pension plan. About 7,000 belong to MEPSTOA, which is the Manhattan and Bronx Surface Transportation or Operating Authority. It's hard to compare the numbers because the 2 plans have different fiscal years. NYSERS has got a June fiscal year, and MEPSTOA has got a 12/31 fiscal year. So effectively what we're paying to MEPSTOA is based upon a full year evaluation, actuarial evaluation. The accrual basis of accounting requires us to pick up half of one fiscal year for the city and half of the next fiscal year for the city. The figures, basically, if I look at MEPSTOA, the number went from 179 million to 201 million, which looks like a fairly large increase. However, what's included in there, the state legislature last year voted to let certain members of the TWU and other unions get refunds for contributions from prior years into a 55-25 year plan. That was roughly $20 million. So if I take that off, it looks like MEPSTOA is flat. Nothing is ever flat with MEPSTOA. We had made a $100 million prepayment in 2007, and the interest savings on that resulted in a $12 million savings. So had we not made the prepayments, it would have been around 180 versus 191. On the city, the number went from 443 to 481, and basically I think that's primarily as a result of having 2 fiscal years that the increase was higher than the increase in MEPSTOA. But as you've read in the papers, pension costs are going up and will continue to go up, particularly in terms of what's happened in the market in the last year.
What is the earnings rate assumed on MEPSTOA?
8%.
And do you have the same practice as NICERS of a end-of-year snapshot on the value of the equity portfolio?
Yes. Yes, but it's more than an equity portfolio. It's
the whole thing?
It's the full portfolio, yes.
And
Pricewaterhouse does an audit for us at the end of the year.
And what is your pattern for phasing in changes in value in terms of how they're carried into your annual contribution?
5-year waiving, 5-year level.
5-year level starting in the year immediately following the snapshot?
Yes. I think the city uses 6.
It actually uses 7. It doesn't start in the year immediately following the snapshot, and then it's the 6 years following that.
Okay.
Do you know what the So we're talking about the financial statements for '08. So what would be driving the pension costs that we're talking about would be the value realized as of the end of '07?
Yes.
Do you know how that value compared to the assumed gain?
Off the top of my head, through '07, through the history of the plan, it had exceeded the 8%. Certainly the results of 2008 have changed all of that.
Mm-hmm. So gains are phased in over 5 years as well as losses.
Right.
So we'd actually be in the phase-in of gains territory through '08.
Yes, we would. I mean, there are some loss years in there, but overall I would say the 5 years contain more gains than they did losses.
Right. Are we carrying a forecast for what we expect? Well, what was the value at the end of '08?
At the end of '08, it was just under $1 billion.
As compared to what was it supposed to be?
Well, it was just under $1.3 billion, $1.25 billion, say, at the end of '07. So it would be 8% on top of $1.25 billion. $1.3 billion and a high.
Okay. Right. The so I mean this sort of the trend that we've been familiar with is not likely to continue.
I would say not.
I guess that anything else on pensions? I was going to ask. I mean, one of your criteria in here is considering questions of going concern. Can you talk about what goes into that determination from an accounting point of view?
Sure, certainly. Going concern is really assumed for most businesses in the normal course of events, but being an abnormal year, I could tell you that it's something that has been viewed by me personally and lots of folks in the accounting profession. What really goes into it is it's a cash flow test. So it really, certainly we look at accrual basis accounting as it relates to how much of the accruals will come to fruition either on the revenue side or on the expense side within 12 months and a day. So it's a criteria of 12 months and 1 day from the date of the report that's being issued, and the report meaning 12/31 in this case. So what we're saying, or what any audit firm is saying, is that when we sign the opinion and there's no reference to going concern language as it's euphemistically referred to, that we believe the entity will continue at least 12 months and 1 day from a cash flow perspective. Obviously, the interesting caveat with respect to a government agency is that there's the backing of a government agency or another government agency. I will tell you, in the business world, as you've seen, I'm sure, there are more going concerns which are being issued with 12/31/08 opinions because there isn't that either level of funding or leverage that's available. But that's generally the criteria and the considerations that we look at.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? Could I have a motion to approve the 2008 financial statements for the New York City Transit Group? Second? Any objection? No objection. The motion carries. I think that we do need to adjourn, and then we go into executive session.
Thank you.
Yeah, but let me just tell something about that. Mike, on behalf of Jim Sedor, this is the committee. It's actually the last year of your contract, and both Jim and I would like to thank you to the work you've done in the past for the MTA and New York City Transit in the past years.
We appreciate that. We're actually coming back for a couple more cameos with the management letter in June and the A133. But we certainly appreciate the attention and the effort that's been provided to us, and we look forward to future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I guess we need a motion to go into executive session to meet with representatives of our auditing firms.
Moved.
Second? Second. Any objection? Motion passed. Thank you.
If we could clear the room, please, except for the people that need to be here. You have the blue book.